last few months ago, and that's how the whole thing started. And I think we're going to work a lot later. Okay, today's summit seems to be very interesting. It's indeed, and I saw the title and I saw the whole list of keynote participants. What is so nice is that we have a pandemic that is in a global scale, and everyone is a bit confused. The best way to solve this, and they are also, if you could see very well, everybody end up to be very nationalist. They like to have their border and they like to solve things themselves, and everybody have their own solutions. That's what we could see this time. One of the first thing they can see that not many countries are doing lockdown. If you happen to know, there are 3 billion people at one time are in lockdown. Malaysia was been locked down for nearly 6 weeks. I think India is still in lockdown. But the issue is for some countries that lockdown is not only solution, and we have various form of lockdown. Countries like Vietnam and Australia, their lockdown is such a way that only schools and universities are not locked down, but are in lockdown. But those people are working; they have to work. So we have various form of ways to solve. But let me start it. What is this whole disease all about? It is not very new. This severe acute respiratory syndrome. This COVID-19 stands for coronavirus ID year 2019 and 2020. It's a SARS type of disease. And the very first type of SARS actually started in Guangdong, China. If you know very well, it was in year 2002 to July 2003. And no one know about it because it just disappeared within 7 months. But it was 8,000 cases with 800 deaths, and normally the neighboring country. So the rate of death is about 10%. So it happens about nearly 18 years ago, to be precise. And we had a very similar coronavirus in Saudi Arabia in 2013. It actually hit about 20,000 people and about 2,000 deaths. But many people doesn't know much about it. That's the problem here. When it happened in China in November, apparently even Chinese government started to take it lightly because they thought it will be the similar SARS virus that happened before. But when things goes the big number, when the number started to scale up to 20,000, then things get loose because there were a lot of travels done by the time. And that's the time they saw that it is a pandemic. It is not just an epidemic per se. So the question is how this virus will last and how long it will actually sustain. It is something that no one knows. But we could see that even in the worst case, like countries like UK and US, it started to flatten. Okay, just to ask, Prof. Naga, are you able to hear me? Yes, all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, Professor.
Yes.
Okay, so that is a good news. At least we reached at the peak. Then in most cases, we started to flatten. The question is, which is the best method that people have used and where it works very well? The question, this is a question of ego actually, because everybody have their own way. In the year, if you bring the old history on Spanish flu, apparently we call it Spanish flu. The flu started in somewhere in Ireland or in UK, but it ended up to be a Spanish flu because the person actually migrated to Spain. So it happened in about 200 years ago, more than 200 years ago, but it was a similar health regimental way of lockdown is done during that time. If you happen to see that they asked to wear mask, and in most cases they asked young children and old people not to go out. That was the case actually. When you say when the old people and young people not to go out, apparently these are the people who survived, and most of the people who died, there were 60 million people, and actually killed about 60 million Europeans. Most people who died, actually, those people between the age of 20 to 40, because these are people who went out and work, and actually affect them a lot. So the current problem now we see is that is this the same thing we are seeing, or is that the same disappearing thing that we see before? Remember, I was telling about the SARS virus and the corona that happened in Saudi. Is it that very disappearing type we have, or is it a global scale pandemic that we see 100 years ago? So this is a question that actually comes to people, and of course, a lot of techies are going around predicting a lot of things. They are saying that we able to predict a lot of things here. Then we can see the trend is going down. So the prediction here can go from a very techy type to religious, even to very religious type. Some people even can go and say that a certain date the virus actually can go down. If you're a religious type and you're able to predict, if your prediction goes right, that's it. You become very famous then after that. But for a techie, there are people doing a lot of AI tools, but it fails in a way that because we are not actually dealing with a shopping trend here. We are actually dealing with human scare. When it comes to human scare, people tend to get panic. And if you look at countries, when they don't lock down, there are countries that, like in Malaysia, the lockdown had to be enforced actually. The enforcement in such a way that if you go out just out of your house, you are fined about 1,000 ringgit. That's about nearly about 20,000 rupees now. So that's a way that, and they already had a compound of nearly 40,000 compounds made so far. That's the only way to sustain a lockdown. But lockdown is not always the right way, and as you pointed out by your trustee, Mr. In the initial his take was that this lockdown has caused a lot of what do you call economic problems here. If you see in Malaysia, I think just about 2 hours ago, the Prime Minister was in the podium, and he was talking about it cost about 98 billion ringgit because of this lockdown. Just to tell that about nearly 40 hotels business collapse in Malaysia. Airlines, Malaysia is still going strong, but there are a lot of airlines the surrounding have to wind up. Tourism will not be there for some time. We were not having a lot of we have a lot of tourists from India, from China, and also from neighboring country. People tend to be very nationalistic now. They end up going back home knowing that they won't be getting jobs, and there are also many people doing normal labor job. They know that things are not same in their countries that they used to work. So lockdown caused a lot of economic impact. Tourism will not be there for nearly for a year. People seems to be very non-social. Okay, now we're going to open up next Monday. The whole idea is we have to have 1.5 meters radius of distance wherever you go. A life where we used to shake hand, and in some cases, we do we are Asian, so our hugs are very not, if you're very close friends or between the same sex, they might hug, and this no more there. That's kind of social norm is no more there. So things change a lot, and we have staying. When you stay in a very small space, when you live in 1,000 to 2,000 square feet of space, you walk around, you have mental fatigue, unless you have a castle that you can roam around. This is not the case here. So these are the cases when you have lockdown. It's not the best solution, but it actually can flatten the curve very fast. In most cases, we don't see a flattened it flats and you actually will go down the case. But in most cases, like in US and also in UK, as for now, and what worrying is actually those in South Africa, South America, and also in some part of Africa, we see that the cases are going up, and also the case goes to Middle East. So when some places it started to go down, and there are places there's no cases, countries like doing very well, like New Zealand and also Vietnam and Thailand. There are countries like Malaysia, the curve is going down, and we started to going to the last phase. Uh, and also like in US where and UK and also India, to be saying that the cases are started to flat. So we are going to a downturn, but there are also places where the cases actually surging. So we until every place these things disappear, or we have a vaccine, or we have a cure. There's two different things. People, vaccine is you jab so that you won't get it. A cure is actually, you have so many people in ventilator. You need to actually take care of them also. So so apparently American came with a with a solution now that they have something that actually they can cure those people, and we need to do mass production now. And you know that the only country can do mass production on this vaccine and cure is actually India, with their Serum Institute, and the one they have the Biotech Institute in Hyderabad. So again, they have to send this recipe, and they have to do millions of copy of this, and they have to give it out to people. Then only you can see the whole cases flat around the world. So AI tools are good for prior knowledge, where you want to ask where the people move and where they move, if they actually move in a very restricted zones. But if they go around and go in a very large area where they travel, it will be case where they will not able to actually sustain this problem. This is exactly you see where in US is. In US, the case is that normally when you see that, you always say to yourself, how come that things that people just don't follow the lockdown? Even like in India, they can do it very well. Different story here. In US, things are like, if you are in lockdown, you have no jobs. What is there if you have no jobs? So that's why people just go out and say, no, we won't going to do any lockdown, because we need to have job, we need to have money, and we have to eat. This is the whole idea in US now. Unless you have good package, or in where during these few months or few weeks of lockdown you have been sustained. But US is a very capitalism country. Capitalist is where that when this kind of situation is the right time to wind up. This happened in Malaysia. Even in my near city, there are 3 hotels wind up immediately during this situation. So people like to take opportunity this time. Well, I'm not doing well, I think I won't be doing well anymore. So the same thing happened in US. More there about when the President Trump made the State Union address, the 5th of February. He was actually claiming that it was a record unemployment, about 400,000 people. That's like nothing. That is true actually. When he came down, he brought the nationalist level agenda in. When a lot of factories come to US, and he reduced the unemployment. But it was scary when this pandemic come. Within 3 or 4 months, everything changed. US have the highest unemployment in history. Like the key note, Padma Sri Malini was saying, that's a nice word she used, even from the arts background. She was saying that new job creation should be there. Just like even like the trustee of Galgotias was saying there. When we have continuous updates of people, when you just open, you can say number of cases, coronavirus cases everywhere, which country you want, every place, which state you want, which state it shows the highest increase per day, which shows recovered cases. In some cases, number of people in ventilators, number of people in ICU. In Malaysia, you can see all these details. I really hope that the same thing goes to those people, when it comes to job creations. When we have all cases flattened, my belief is that the case will flatten in most countries. The concern is big because it actually involved the Western Bloc. If you could see that, coronavirus was there in Saudi, no one cares. SARS virus was in China 18 years ago, no one cares. But when it comes to the Western Bloc, and actually it caused economic collapse, that actually concerned everyone. So the whole idea is like what your trustee was saying. My belief is that when things open up, there's new job creation. We all hope that this thing will be like, where you also do posting the same thing. We have a lot of jobs here and there. This at that level details. We have jobs in this zone. We have job in here. The whole idea is to get the labors, those middle class people get back working. Those from the white collar or high paid job, I think it goes on a very much detailing point. But I feel the middle class and also the laborers, I believe that they should be observed very fast into the job market. Then things will go well for the economy after the lockdown and so on. If you look at it, what actually perplexes me a lot, actually, everything goes down. Economic collapse, job loss, everybody is scared. But one thing is stagnant. It has a small jolt, or the small curve went down for a while, especially the stock market. Everywhere you go, the stock market actually fall in the month of March. It fell a bit in March or month of April, but things picking up now. So those people with money, they took money because all the banks are giving very low interest now. They're putting all the money in the stock market when the price went down. So they just sustain the stock market as for now. In order for that, the valuation of the big companies, this is all the private limited company, are there and they're able to sustain for now. So those actually are doing very bad now are those small and medium industries owned by families, owned by a group of families of a partnership. So the belief is that like your trustee or chairman's advice is that we need to have impetus, some kind of input, some financial input for these people, because in Malaysia itself, I think India same 60% of the people who are working who actually come from these SMEs. And regarding this COVID, my best example is what I see in Vietnam, a country where the leader actually said when the virus started in Wuhan, which is about 1,200 kilometers from their capital Hanoi. There was just 1 hour flight from Wuhan. So what I could see that the leader was very modest, and he was saying, we have no medical mean if we have such a pandemic, and economically we are not so strong to actually handle this. So he started a lockdown. We call it we call it a conditional lockdown, where all school, the leaders started a lockdown. I mean, close all school from February right to June. Can you imagine? Somebody said, you are locked for 4 months, and all universities should do online again. The belief was very simple. All schools and all universities are just like a stagnant cruise ship. It can cause, if any problem, any infection there, it will cause a multiple infection. Then in order to sustain the economy, the people are allowed to work, but again strong health advice where everybody have be distant. The social distancing must be there, and if there's any case, the contact tracing are done at the level of 5. That means, who do you meet? Okay, and I meet A, and who do you meet? I meet B, and B, who do you meet? It goes up to E. So when you have one case, it goes up to 2,000 people to be screened, or at least kept in a lockdown or kept isolated for 2 weeks. The isolation keeping is old for is actually a cheap way, we call it. The whole because normally you isolate people. This virus is just like any flu. If it's you have the whatever symptoms, then they will do a test. If you don't have any of the symptom, after 2 weeks you can go back home. If they found a symptom, then they will put you in a hospital. So in the case of Vietnam, by doing this 5 level of contact tracing, they're able to limit the case, though they are only about 1,000 kilometers from Wuhan. And actually, Vietnam and China don't have that good relationship too. Just they are neighbors, though they are communists in the same principle. They don't, and they only able to limit the case up to 200 over cases, and with zero death. They are the only country with zero death, though making the country economic running. I mean, everybody is working still, but of course there's a social distancing. Australia actually copied the same thing. They closed the school, but they did it way after March first week. They closed the university, but people are allowed to work. Unless you work in restaurants or bar or hotel, it's all closed. Anything gathering more than 10 or 20, you are closed. So within lockdown, you lock everything. Actually, you're going to cost a lot of daily job wages. Their concern is very strong. Like in India, I think there are a lot of people with daily job. In Malaysia, there is a way of helping those people, but it is not that big amount. Everybody is suffering. So on the issue on looking at how the prediction the end of COVID, it all depends on how the disciplined people are. You can put everybody in full lockdown, and like the case in Singapore, it worked so well. Everybody was in lockdown and it worked very well. The case went down, and actually they opened their phase 4 started actually in March. They open up where people can go in 2 people, and actually you can cross zones. That was the difficult part, and the case started to spike. And what you see now, there was a big spike in Singapore because they had a lockdown and they actually loosened out for just 1 week. So the lockdown have a different many ways of locking down, but it's all on how disciplined we are and how actually we want to make sure that this invisible enemy actually will disappear. But it already caused a lot of impact, socio-economic impact. Socially, human being, we are not very close to anybody except for our family. Now we have become very nationalist now. Look at Eurozone. Can you imagine that? I cannot imagine. They're having single currency. They're having open border. But when this pandemic happened, no one helping each other. So same thing goes to ASEAN. Singapore is having a problem, and a very small country with the biggest number of cases. They have to handle such a big number. So everybody became, and the best part is that everybody going back to their own country. We have tens of thousands of people from Indonesia. They're going back home, and we have tens of thousands from Malaysia coming back to Malaysia. So, like what Padma Sri Malini was saying very nicely, we have to develop our own nation. Now, for 1 or 2 years, people became very nationalist now. So we all sitting here as an academic people. Most of us are academic, I guess. What role are we going to play? It's a big thing actually. In the 80s, if you go to India, I was in India. My parents and my wife are all from India. So I used to go to India all often, and in the 80s when I go, not many people with job, but when you go to colleges, the lecturers, they teach very fundamental thing and they write books. I think the biggest company called Infosys, the owner one time, the chairperson said the biggest thing that he found that how the academic staff of that time, they just concentrate on the fundamentals, which makes so easy for the Indian student when they go out and apply it easily in the software industries or any technical industries. My belief is that when this COVID thing ends, we academic staffs or academic circle, we have a big role to play. The quadriphylix thing is very important here, because those academic staff need to end up working with the industry very strongly. Not strongly, industries are now picking up. They will have new models now, modality I can call it. We have become more IT centric, or probably we have new form of economy now. Depends on the country. Academic staff need to be a knowledge base for this industry. We need to be somebody that need to advise the government too. At the same time, we also need to serve the society. I think this is what we were doing in the 80s in India. I could see that they were serving the society. They are big names among the government officials. At the same time, they know the local industry very well. If you go back to that level, I think the university will actually flourish very well. And this pandemic brought a reset. I think we were going everywhere. We tried to see the best methods, best research, and we started to go inside all these jargon, IoT, AI, machine learning. If you go to the biological term, they have so many other jargons too. We started to attack one and started to apply, and we asked our students to just jump on it, and we work on that. Now I think we have to go by looking at what the industry wants, what the society wants, and probably what the government of the day wants. This COVID taught us very well what is actually your expertise. If you take Malaysia actually admitted, we actually get all the testing kit from South Korea. Even the rapid kit come from China, but now we're trying to get from South Korea because, looking at the efficiency. So what our expertise are, only the enforcement. We do the enforcement right. We have less people get infected, and by getting less people get infected, then we able to actually reduce the number of cases, mainly number of cases in the hospital. The most countries like in Spain, in Italy, or in UK as for now, the case, the chaos is actually when you have so many people in hospital. So when this is where, like in India, things are okay because it's such a large country and you have a lot of hospitals. And when you take states and you take districts, panchayat, whatever, So when these numbers started to increase, that actually caused a lot of chaos. So in Malaysia, is that we zone it to state level, to district level, same like what you're doing in India, in order to make sure that, the cases don't overflow. And when the case started to clear by state, now the state I'm staying, there's no cases. Everybody's got all right, or sadly some died. So in the northern region, all the cases are zeroed. But in the big cities like in Kuala Lumpur, the cases are there because we have a lot of laborers who actually they are closely connected because the way they stay. I think the same thing goes to your place in Maharashtra and also Rajasthan and Delhi. We cannot stop that. But the whole idea is that when the hospital get cramped with patients, then things goes wrong. You see that in New York, you see that in London, you see that in Spain and Rome too. That actually to be controlled. So one, you should be good in science in controlling this COVID, or you should be good in the old health regimental way. where you actually follow the advice of the lockdown, and the lockdown should be not relaxed. Okay. Some lockdown that allow you to walk around the zone because you can contact with someone and the contact tracing cannot be done. So that's the whole idea and all that. So what actually we're going to see at the end, what actually we're going to say, what we're going to see next. My conclusion was that the pandemic bring people to very border centric or nationalists. We have become very nationalist for some time. We're not going to travel much. Just to tell you that one of our airlines, is going to start travel next week. We had to be staying 3.5 hours beforehand in the airport. You had to wear your glove and your mask all the time, whether you check in, you board in, or even you fly and you land. And they're going to do a medical check over the site, and you have to stay in that place more than 2 weeks. Okay, so you cannot do like a meeting travel like we academic used to do. We go, we present something, we meet people in 3 days, we come back. No way, you can't do that. So you have to go and stay there in 2 weeks. That means it is very much visiting relatives or a long stay. So they don't allow short travels anymore. And currently they're allowing only for domestic, as for now. And all these airline, though you can have cases zero in that state, when he lands that place, it takes 2 hours to disinfect all the aircraft. So I think it might cost, they will just put in also everything in the ticketing price too. So travels, I don't think you're going to be another 6 or 1 year things going to pick up, because it's not easy and most airlines are not making money, and that's actually a sad point. And if you ask me the trade-off between lockdown and some of the ways or people try to solve this thing, as for now, my belief goes to the common sense of which is best actually for the country. If you look at Vietnam, they did it very well. They kept the economy running. Australia did the same thing. The same thing goes to New Zealand. But it's not always the case. In some cases, like Singapore, they did the same thing, make it loosen up, but things started to spike. So this is the whole idea I found. And how this, when you say about the prediction and so on, I'm not going to say that it didn't work. Even big companies like Google and Apple, they say they're going to work for US, but till now they have nothing to say, because it's so chaotic to see people. One part they agree to lockdown, the other part no, and there are a lot of solutions out there. And we see the Microsoft, the former CEO Bill Gates actually giving a lot of saying that at this point is the best time to actually to get the airtime, and saying that no, we're going to have a vaccine. We're going to see that the pandemic is going to go down. But for a country that goes seeing that the economic is getting collapsing, like taking Malaysia, we have every time we have a positive GDP growth, but this time not even Singapore for record time we have a contraction. Contraction. Sorry, where it goes to -2, -3. It is a big problem. I think to go back to a positive point, it might take years actually. And what is actually behind your interest rate going down more than below 2%? You save money, it's no use. You keep in the stock market, very volatile. So that is difficult now to actually to predict. COVID will go down by the time May ends, but there are some small countries like South Africa or Africa or even Middle East started picking up now. The surge is there. But as I said to you, when the Western country flattens and things goes well, the other place, is just like, yeah, there's the cases there. That's how things are. India is doing well. We hope that by the time May 4th, things are loosened up and people can go back to work. Probably in the 50% capacity. lockdown bring a lot of things, good thing to us. We know value of being in a family unit, how difficult those people in the house actually they are taking care of your kids, or even make sure their home are tidy. uh, but we have to be dynamic too. We have to go back and make sure the economics of the country is going around. But I really hope academic institution or academics per se, we will do. We have changes in life too. Remember the quarter Felix, I was saying that we have to serve the society, we have to serve the industry, and we have to serve the government of the day. This is the best time, and of course we have a lot of people around now, like what we have now, so we can actually have regional collaboration like what we have here. I'd like to thank Prof. Naga. I think I'm okay on time. Are you there, Prof. Naga?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
On the behalf of Naga ma'am, I'm here. I'm Usha Chauhan from School of Electronics and Communication Department. First of all, thank you so much, sir, Professor Vijnath Sagyan, that it's our pleasure and privilege to have you here. And we are very much pleased to welcome you here. And thank you so much for taking time to share your wisdom with us and for being a part of this wonderful experience and making this event or day into a memorable one. Despite of your busy schedule, you came here and it was a very informative talk. And I hope and I'm sure that my audience must have been benefited from this. And sir, there are some question answers round from the participant side. So I would like to take a few questions from the audience. So please be there.
Okay, I'll be there. I'm happy to take some questions.
Yes, a few questions I want to take from the audience side. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Sir, one question. Satya Sharma sir has asked, he would like to know that when this situation becomes normal, the job opportunity will decrease for people. According to you, what will be your suggestion for students to cope up with this problem?
Regarding reduction, as I said, that most of the big countries or the Western bloc, it's flattening. That means you take a normal curve, it's on the top. So you're looking at another 1 month. If they are following the lockdown, or we call it the control procedure well. If you look at the models, they can give you many, but every model said by end of May, things will subside. Okay. Regarding there's a good question regarding jobs for students. Every student is now concerned of jobs now. The thing is that it is an economic reset. There are a lot of SMEs there, a lot of big companies. They survive because they are not a company owned by a family, but company actually been public listed. Most of the share market, it just jolted for a while, but they went back to the original price. I mean, whatever that is there, but some are still down. But at the end of the day, they might throw people out. This is a good time to throw people with a good pay. Everywhere you go, when you have you're a capitalism, world. That's what they do. But there's a new, like what you see now. There are companies like doing online. Companies like now we are in Zoom now. The share market just went up. So. And now very well that people, even I'm going back to the university, I won't be having a meeting in the room now. I just will go to whether Skype or MS Team or Jitsi or whatever, tools they have. I prefer to talk on my own desktop. Things change. So this kind of business now, I can see a lot of startups now coming out on video meeting. Some people giving meeting for free. Of course, with all limitation. If something is free, nothing is free lunch anyway. And there are also some students are doing actually, this kind of client to client. You see, now when it comes to this video meeting, there are a lot of cloud-based. Cloud is actually a private server. We always misuse the word actually. Or server-based. So when you say private server, the security is sorry, cloud is a public server. Sorry, if you have a private server, then you have looking into a security per se. But people like to look at also at client to client. There's like there are a lot of software like Jammy and all that they used to do client to client. So even if you can do a simple Java program on client to client, so the trend now goes that your final year project and all that, you end up saying that I want to do a video meeting or video call or video chat, rather than somebody will say I want to do somebody
Hello.
will say I want to do an IoT or sensing and so on. So we are going to see a lot of new trend setting now on interest by students and so on. But regarding jobs, my belief is that when just like it took 4 months to collapse everything, it took for another 4 months to settle things, another 4 months for a search. That's what things normally happen. Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Up to you, Usha.
Yes, sir. So one more question, sir, from Dr. Lalit Prasad. He is
Please.
asking that as we all know the COVID-19 cases death around the world, what would be the best safe way do you suggest to overcome the pandemic, keeping in mind the more dense and underprivileged countries having limited resources to fight with the pandemic, as world knows the highest death in USA, even having the best health services.
Yes, that was a nice question. This is what I put in an abstract. Apparently, that the country have the best healthcare. You take if you're in Europe, you know that Spain do have one of the best healthcare. France, you need to say the entire tax paying will go to the healthcare. Same thing goes to National Health (NHS) in UK and US healthcare. These have the best healthcare, but apparently that these countries implement lockdown in a very later stage when the spread already happened. The point where you have to do the lockdown is very important. India did it very well, though the lot of concern on the poor people. Sometimes you had to bite this pill. At the end of the day, in order to make sure things really work. If not, it will be a chaos like what you see happen in apparently in first world countries. Sadly, for a good example, I think normally I tell even my students around that to model the 4 countries that are nearby. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, we have Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and also there are 3. What's another country? Norway. Yes, 4 countries: Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Apparently, Sweden is the only country says that I don't need to do any lockdown, and we are perfect. And if you happen to know Sweden very well, it consists of people. One of the best modelers in the world are coming from there. They have best prediction and so on. Apparently, they failed. The countries nearby, like Denmark, Norway, or even Finland. Finland is very close to them. Same climate, everything. They have very few cases and few death. But apparently, Sweden, who say that no, we will no lockdown, we can have a free life. It fails, and it shows a big number of death. And they are not going back for a lockdown. It is again, every country have their way of solving it. Sometimes the leaders' ego is also there, sadly. But my belief is that at the end of the day, go back to the health regulation. I know you have our best AI tools, the best powerful machine, but you have to go back to health regimental solution at this point, and that's the only thing solved. We have New Zealand and also Vietnam as one very good example in country-wise. They're not open the country yet, where their cases are all zeroed, and now the people are just going around. Of course, they already sealed the border. No one opened the border for now yet. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you, sir, on behalf of Galgotia University. We are very much privileged and pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Usha. Thank you very much, Prof. Naga, and everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Vijayan. Thank you for joining us. It was certainly a very good session and it was great hearing to you. May I now request Professor? Yes, ma'am. May I now request Mr. Nirbhay Mathur from UTP Malaysia to share a few words.
Hello, good afternoon to all. I think it's a good morning to India, but it's afternoon in Malaysia. It's a great pleasure. Like I have been invited here, a few topics to share on my views on COVID-19. As we all know, like we all are suffering from this event. It's been like very random and very unknownly predicted here. So the whole entire world is suffering from this part. So in this, like as a part of me, I am a research scientist in UTP, and we are working with a team to work on the prediction part. So we have looked into several parameters in which cases like we can going to predict about like how we can see the COVID-19. So far, we don't have any of vaccination for this thing, but still we have to control this disease, virus spread. So in this case, Malaysia is taking a good steps in here. We are having MCO, is known as Movement Control Operation. So in this, they have limitized the movements. So somehow in Malaysia, we have controlled cases, and the number of the cases have been decreasing instead of going exponentially growth. Now we can see it's decreasing in a day. Cases reporting and the case recover also is been increased. Somehow, if we talk about India, India is also doing very great in controlling the events, is controlling the incidences, as we can see the graph as per the prediction. The thing is like we have to do a number of trials of the testing kits. That is one of the basic thing we are missing in India. But still, hope is best for like we can have a good number of recovery rates. So I will just share a few points of my research, what I have done so far. So last time we was looking on the model is named as SPIR, very known for any kind of a disease modeling, in which we do normally use it for prediction of the spread. So in the last 2013 and 14, it was performed by for Ebola virus. Somehow we can use the same model to predict for the virus for COVID. Somehow we have attained some of the prediction graph, and also I'm looking on some part of a bathtub curve prediction, in which when we are seeing the reliability for the COVID virus. In this, I'm looking in the inverse way. So if we have a hazard function, then we can relate it with the downfall of the corona cases. So in this research, we have found some of the research, like if we have a high number of restriction areas. So if we have a lockdown period, of course, it's like it has been mentioned, like lockdown is going to give a very big pain to everyone. But still, if we continue with the lockdown, it is definitely going to give us a drop down in the number of cases. And even in my research, I have found like if we see the graph is going to be stabilized. Instead of going to the exponentially growth, it will be stabilized there. So it means like cases are still there, but we are still controlling them. So this is how we are going to see the aspects of COVID in prediction way. I think Dr. Shweta, I'm okay with this now. If anyone have a questions or doubts on this part, like how we have used the models and all these things, I'm okay to answer them.
So if anybody has any question about bathtub curve or how the prediction of the virus has been done, you may leave your questions in the chat box and we will take the questions to the speaker.
Even in the meantime, I would like to tell, I'm also looking also on a new research, and like we are seeing on how we can extend part of the lockdown. So if we are discussing with the team, like if still the lockdown continues, how we can see it's going to affect. Either we should remove the lockdown or we should still have the lockdown. So we are still looking on these kind of parameters. Some research are already published and many researchers have already done this kind of prediction, but somehow we are looking some more parameters based on the Malaysia so far. So we have all the data state-wise, and then we are collecting data on the base of the country-wise. And then even, yes, it's also giving a very big cluster on based on the age. Also, we can see another big cluster is based on the male and female. So all these parameters have been concluding, and we are just preparing some kind of good prediction so that we can come up with some new model. Okay, so I got a question. How effective is yes? If I can share my results. Maybe you can leave your email ID. We can share your results. We have seen it. The traces are going very good so far. The track of the predicted and the original data is somehow very predicted. They're overlapping somehow.
There are some questions wherein there are research going on COVID-19 in the laboratory to make a vaccine. But my question is, if this research continues, there can be a chance of spread from the laboratory. I'm not sure if Mr. Nirbhay will be able to answer regarding the vaccine and the spread through the laboratory. We have a session on this tomorrow and today evening also. So I request Mr. Sandeep Panda, who has raised this question, to join the session as per the agenda, where we have speakers from research and immunology who will be talking on this. And especially we have Dr. Radhakrishnan, who will be talking about the spread of the virus from the animals to the humans and how it can spread further and how we can curb it. I'm so sorry, sir. We couldn't take that question because it was not relevant to the speaker. Then we have a question. What are the similarities between COVID-19 virus and SARS?
We have seen, if we see the track here, we have seen the kind of similarities. Even we are using the similar model. We are using SEIR model, which is being used for SARS also. So if we talk about the clinical trials, I'm not very sure about it. But if we see the pattern of it, it's seen the similar somehow. Even the medicines are not being decided yet. So what kind of medicines we are going to use it. But if I talk about the way of the prediction, or if we see the trend, it is seen almost similar somehow.
Then we have another question, is that how are you handling the pre-processing and validation of your model?
Yeah, we are using several models. I have mentioned like one model we are using SEIR, another we are using KNN model, another we are using our ANN models. So we are looking on all of three models, and then we see how best they get fit. So based on that, we are validating our results. And even we are performing our model validation on the old data. Suppose I have collected data from 25th January, which was the first date of reporting in Malaysia. And I carried out till February 20, maybe 25, 26, something like that. And I try to fit. So I can see some kind of a triangle there. So which model is getting best fit? We are seeing this kind of validation here. Any other question?
Yeah, we have another couple of questions. What causes people who have been cured from COVID-19 to get infected again? Does your prediction models use such kind of cases?
I think it's a very nice question, but I think so far we are not considering these patients. So because the data we are getting is coming as a total cases. So if they are recovered, we are just considering as a numbers. So we are not looking towards these numbers. So we are just focused on the total number of cases reported. So recovered numbers so far we are not handling right now. So the main aim for us is to predict the number of cases to be get in the future. So we are just using total number of cases. So so far we haven't looking on this parameter.
Okay, I think there are a lot of questions coming up.
Sure.
We have one more question saying that, does the statistical analysis or prediction models even consider the global climatic conditions and other parameters with and problems for the prediction?
That is a very, very challenging question somehow. We are looking on this scenarios like climatic conditions. If we see the different countries which have different climatic conditions, we cannot say whether the climate is really affecting or not. But if we see the trend, it's actually it depends on the spread, how frequently it gets spread. So at this moment, I'm not pretty sure about the temperature or maybe the climatic condition, but it depends on the how it gets spread. So how the people are reacting towards the handling it in the spread case. But this could be a one opportunity if we look at the climatic condition. Yeah, this could be another part of research. We can look on these aspects also.
So the other questions that we had are more related to climate and immunology and immune system. So I will take these questions in a different session where we have a relevant speaker.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was a brief questions that we had, but we had a good number of questions, interesting questions from all over. Thank you, Mr. Nirbhay. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Professor Vijnath from UTP Malaysia, for joining us. We really had a very good session, and I'm sure the participants and the
Thank you very
audience
much.
had a good time.
Now my video is working. So
Yeah, it is working. We can see you.
And Prof. Fusha also. Actually, we have a team now. We are actually working at the national level actually on prediction. One of the best things actually we found the curve actually flattened fast if you have a lockdown. So Nirbhay having data from WHO for the whole data for the whole world. Now we are looking whether when you're taking the 4 countries, especially the Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and also Finland, we could really see that how the lockdown actually, the traditional way actually works. So thank you very much for the call, and actually it's very much in line with our current work in our lab.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you, Nirbhay. Thank you for joining us.
Doctor.
Yeah, hope you all stay safe, and we will again connect on a different platform for sure.
Sure, for sure.
Same to you.
Have a safe night.
Thank you very much. Dear audience, we will have to take a 10-minute break before the next